It was supposed to be a quiet day at Stark Tower, the rare kind of day Tony Stark relished. He had been tinkering with a new piece of tech, one designed to amplify the arc reactor's energy output, when the alert came in. "Mr. Stark, there's an unusual situation developing in a remote village in Southeast Asia. Friday," his AI assistant chimed in. "Reports of a fast-spreading illness that's proving to be fatal in a matter of hours. Initial images suggest it's unlike anything seen before." Tony frowned, setting down his tools. "A plague in 2024? Shouldn't the CDC or WHO be on top of this?" "Both agencies are aware but unable to make contact with the village," Friday replied. "It appears the area has been quarantined. Satellite imagery shows armed guards blocking the only roads in and out." That got Tony's attention. "Quarantined? By whom?" "Unknown," Friday said. "But the guards aren't local officials. Based on their gear, they appear to be mercenaries." Tony stood, his mind racing. "All right, pack up the Mark 85. Looks like Iron Man's going on a field trip." Within hours, Tony was airborne, his private jet racing toward the coordinates Friday had provided. As he neared the village, he switched to his Iron Man suit, deploying mid-air and letting the jet return on autopilot. From above, he could see the chaos: makeshift barricades, tents filled with the sick, and a sea of frightened faces. "Friday, give me a scan of the area," Tony commanded as he hovered over the scene. "Scanning now," Friday replied. "The pathogen appears to be airborne, but has a biological signature unlike anything in our database. It's mutating rapidly, which explains the high fatality rate." Tony landed near the edge of the village, his red and gold armor gleaming despite the grim surroundings. Immediately, villagers began to gather, their faces a mix of fear and hope. "Relax, folks," Tony said, amplifying his voice through the suit. "I'm here to help. First things first, who's in charge?" An elderly man stepped forward, his hands trembling. "I am the village chief. Please, sir, my people are dying. We don't know what to do." "Let's start with containment," Tony said. "I need samples of whatever this thing is. Friday, deploy a biodome around the infected area. No one gets in or out until we figure this out." The suit's automated systems sprang into action, creating an invisible barrier around the village to prevent the pathogen from spreading. Tony then began scanning the villagers, identifying those who were infected and isolating them in a makeshift infirmary. As night fell, Tony worked tirelessly, analyzing the pathogen with the suit's advanced medical systems. The more he learned, the more alarmed he became. This wasn't a naturally occurring disease, it had been engineered. "Friday, this is bioterrorism," Tony muttered. "Someone created this." "I've cross-referenced the pathogen structure with known biochemical weapons," Friday said. "There's a 92% match with research conducted by a rogue biotech firm, Genesis Labs." Tony's jaw tightened. He remembered Genesis Labs, a shadowy company that had been shut down years ago for unethical experiments. Clearly, they were back. As Tony pieced the puzzle together, a group of mercenaries approached the village, their weapons drawn. "Stand down!" their leader barked, his voice amplified by a megaphone. "This area is under our jurisdiction. Leave now or face the consequences." Tony stepped forward, his suit's repulsors glowing ominously. "Let me guess, you're here to clean up your employer's mess. Well, bad news for you. Iron Man doesn't take orders from mercenaries." The standoff was brief. Tony disabled their weapons with an EMP blast and restrained them with energy cuffs. "Friday, notify the authorities. These guys have a lot of explaining to do." Back in the village, Tony finally cracked the code of the pathogen. Using a combination of nanotechnology and localized antidotes, he began treating the infected. The process was slow and grueling, but by dawn, the tide had turned. The villagers were no longer dying, and those already infected showed signs of recovery. But Tony wasn't done. He traced the mercenaries' communications back to a hidden lab deep in the jungle. Suiting up, he flew to the location, determined to shut down Genesis Labs once and for all. The lab was a fortress, surrounded by guards and high-tech defenses. But Tony Stark didn't earn the title of Iron Man by being intimidated. Using every weapon in his arsenal, he stormed the facility, dismantling their operations piece by piece. Inside, he found the mastermind behind the plague, a scientist named Dr. Evelyn Cross. "Why?" Tony demanded, his voice cold as he cornered her. "Money," she said simply. "The world pays top dollar for a cure when they're desperate enough. We create the problem, and then we sell the solution." Tony's repulses hummed with energy, but he held back. "You're going to prison for the rest of your life," he said, "and I'll make sure every lab like this is shut down." Returning to the village, Tony was greeted with cheers and tears of gratitude. The villagers had no idea who he really was, but they didn't need to. To them, Iron Man was a hero, a savior who had risked his life to save theirs. As Tony prepared to leave, the village chief approached him. "How can we ever repay you?" Tony smiled beneath his helmet. "Take care of each other. That's all the thanks I need." As he soared into the sky, Tony felt a sense of fulfillment he hadn't felt in years. He wasn't just Iron Man, he was a symbol of hope. And in a world full of darkness, hope was the most powerful weapon of all. Share your thought in the comments below, and if you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing to my channel. I pour my heart into crafting stories like this for you, and your support is the one helps me keep going. I appreciate having you on this journey,